So the United States government has officially shut down. But how does this impact Social Security payments? There's more than 70 million Americans that receive Social Security every single month, and many of which are asking, is this going to impact our monthly payments? The answer is yes and no. I'm going to break down how you will be affected, who is going to continue to receive payments, and who may not get payments for some time. So make sure you stick around and watch this entire video if you or somebody you know is collecting benefits. But first, before I get into the update, I do ask one thing. Takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. Look at this. It says, how could a government shutdown affect Social Security recipients? That's the big question. And everybody wants to know. Am I going to receive my benefits this month? Well, let's look into this because, again, we need to keep in mind one thing. The federal government just shut down this morning. It's still very early on, and lawmakers are trying to do what they can to open it back up by passing the funding bills. Okay? Look at this, though. It says, we will continue activities critical to our direct service operations and those needed to ensure accurate and timely payment of benefits. That's from Tom Holland. Okay, he's the Social Security's chief financial officer. He says that yes, they will continue activities that are critical to direct service operations. But here's where things get interesting. Social Security receives funding. Their way that they get their funding is through a Social Security tax. The Social Security tax is paid for by employees. It's 50% from employees, or half from employees, half from the employer. It comes in at 6.2% from each one. Total 12.4%. The problem, though, is that we just learned that we are going to see about 1 million people are going to be furloughed, meaning they do not receive benefits for the length, and they don't get payment either, for the length of this shutdown. And then on top of that, we have millions of workers that are essential to the United States government that have to continue to work. The problem is there's no funding, so they don't get paid, meaning they don't see any of their money going into Social Security. Okay, a little bit of an issue here. And that's just federal workers. Then on top of that, you got government contractors, you got employees that they may not be getting paid because the government is shut down. Guess what? That means Social Security isn't getting any of the tax revenue either. Yeah, that's a huge issue. I want to keep reading this though. Look at this right here. It says both Social Security and Medicare are not subject to annual budget negotiations by Congress. Their funding is mandatory because it has already been authorized by the Social Security Act. It says Social Security's dedicated revenue source is generated largely by payroll taxes, which are split by the workers and their employers. Medicare is pretty much the same. But look at this. It says Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, a needs-based program for poor or disabled beneficiaries that is administered by the agency, works a bit differently. It is funded through appropriations made by Congress, but those payments are available through December. So those payments are available through December. What happens in January if we are still working on this government funding bill and the U.S. government is shut down? That's where it becomes a little tricky. But look at this. This is, again, part of the issue as to who is not going to be receiving benefits. It says some of the Social Security Administration's more general services will be put on hold. They include benefit verification, benefit updates that are unrelated to the adjudication of benefits, corrections to an earnings record, and the replacement of Medicare cards. So a big one right here, benefit verification. Okay? If you cannot verify how much you're supposed to receive, there's actually a couple issues here. Number one, if you are getting too much money and you cannot go in and adjust this, there's not a verification there, you may be getting overpayments for the pretty much the entire time that the United States government is shut down, which eventually you may have to pay that back. So be aware of that. The other one is you may not be getting enough benefits. A little bit of an issue. But look at this right here. It says if the shutdown drags on, it could delay Social Security's annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, which adjusts payments for price inflation. If we do not see our cost of living adjustment, okay, if we don't see this, that's a huge issue. Because people are counting on this money. This 2.8% cost of living adjustment, they need that. And if it doesn't come through, many of which are going to struggle, which they already are. But I want to read a couple other things to you, like this one right here. It says most of Social Security's frontline employees will continue to report to work, though like other essential federal workers, they will not be paid. The agency and its staff have already experienced a lot of turmoil this year, which began when the Department of Government Efficiency slashed roughly 12% of its workforce. I've talked to one of my, a friend of mine, one of his, his wife, and she's pretty much said the same thing, that the morale in the office is low. People don't feel like they're appreciated. They're asked to do all these different things and, come in at this time, leave at this time, do this, do that, and the list just keeps getting longer and longer, but yet their salary is pretty much stuck. So they're given more tasks and roles and responsibilities, but their wages aren't going up. And many of them are just ready to leave. Here's the issue. Social Security payments are still going to go out, but there are certain people that may not get theirs because of something that happened that starts today. Look at this. It says what the government's phase out of paper checks means for you. Here's the issue, okay? First off, Social Security payments, we pay into the system, so it's mandatory, they will be sent out. But this is where it's a gray area, okay? Because of the United States throwing in that wrinkle of, there's no more paper checks. Well, you can get paper checks, but it's on a limited basis. It's based off, your own, specific situation. But here's the interesting thing. They are saying that a small number of people, less than 1% of Social Security recipients, receive paper checks. They could actually see delays, okay? They could see delays or disruptions in their payments because the checks may not go out. Let that sink in, okay? Less than 1%. This still means hundreds of thousands of recipients are going to hopefully get a check, a paper check in the mail. The concern is it may not be coming. It may not be coming because of administrative delays. That's the issue. So the bottom line, for the majority of Americans that are receiving electronic payments, your Social Security check's going to be there. Okay? That's what we know. For those that are getting paper checks, there's likely going to be a delay. It doesn't mean the checks aren't coming because people are still processing them. However, we don't have as many people processing those checks. That's the issue. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, this isn't right. We should just push back the paper checks, right? Or push back the move from paper checks to all electronic. Yes, we could. But that's also something that doesn't seem likely at this time because Congress is working on, not the bill for pushing back this change, but what Congress is working on is the 12 appropriations bills in order to keep the United States government funded. That's what they're working on at this time. That right there is the utmost priority. They're not working on anything else. It's just this bill. With that said, any talks or discussions of potentially increasing Social Security benefits, a Social Security reform, helping out the elderly, none of this stuff is going to go through until this government funding bill passes. So we'll see what happens over the next really several days, this week in particular. Okay, we're already Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, going to be very important days. the next couple of weeks, very important as well. The expectation is lawmakers do get something done, but Democrats are going to have to really side with Republicans. Republicans may adjust their stance a little bit, may come a little bit close to what Democrats want, but Democrats are really going to have to come over to the Republican side because President Trump is not going to cater to what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has to say. It's going to be what President Trump wants because he wants to ensure no more waste, fraud, and abuse of the federal government. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of days and several weeks, but that's what we know as of today. So good news for Social Security recipients who are currently receiving electronic payments. Bad news for those that are receiving checks because your checks could be delayed. But if you have any questions regarding this, let me know down in the comment section below. But again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.